firmly believe in fairness and justice for all of us citizens. I have worked hard to provide legal help for those in need of legal representation. If you are injured in an accident, I will fight for your rights and make sure you get the compensation you deserve. I am dedicated to provide you and your loved ones with top-notch legal support. For more information, 601-202-6027 for legal help when it matters most. Again, that's 601-202-6027. Ali Shamsuddin, attorney at law, a proud underwriter of WMPR 911. Boy,
We extend our olive branch to you, standing for the people with your host, attorney Corey Shamsuddin, and guests heard every Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. exclusively on 911 FM WMPR. This program shall focus on facts that we share with each other on this platform designated to inform, educate, and organize our communities in Jackson and abroad. No rational comments or opinions are regarded as being irrelevant, as your comments and participation could prove to be the cornerstone of our goal, being to restore moral ethics, integrity, respect, and progress in efforts to reach for a better future in all aspects of the everyday lives of our family and our children. We now join your host, Ali Shamsuddin, and guests bringing to you Standing for the People here together we can, heard exclusively on the Voice of the Community 91.1 FM WMPR.
Good evening. Good evening. It's 7 p.m. and it's Wednesday. This is Standing for the People, and I'm Ali Shamsuddin. You know, this is what they say African American History Month, which, like people say, you have to be grateful sometimes for whatever you get, but that just says something too about the nature of the society that we're living in. And that is, we have to separate out a month out of the 12 months of the year to try to help people understand what African Americans have contributed to this country. So we have to fight and struggle and admonish and whatever words you want to use to say, give us at least a month out of the year that we could try to help people understand that we are not just a pariah on the society or not, we just dependents and non-contributors to this society. We study history. As I've said, we study European history, that includes America. European history from the cradle to the grave. And I don't care what kind of degree you have had to pass some history courses. And when you start talking about world history or American history, it seems like all the contributors to the world have been European. Sometimes I might throw in some other nationalities, I like to say, of people, not necessarily racist. China or Japan or something of that nature. But we as African Americans and Africans, former Africans, and Africa as a continent, the population of Africa being left out of history, which makes it so easy for those who have the racist mentality and the bigoted mentality, particularly toward African Americans. It's so easy and they feel so comfortable trying to say all these negative stereotypes that they have about African Americans. You can't expect them to take their own time to research and to find out what is the true history of Africa and the true history of African Americans, Black people here in America, and our journey from its inception up to the date. I'm gonna bring him on. Let's start it again. I got it. Glad to see you calling in, brother Mac. I'm gonna take a few minutes and I'm gonna introduce you, and then we're gonna have our show tonight. I want to tell people that you bring such a wealth of information about our history that I'm gonna hold the calls tonight. I really want people just to kind of listen and take it in.
Well, if they want to call, I'm not tripping. I think it'll add to it. It'll be a lot more enjoyable for me.
Well, we can do it that way as well if we can make it work. That is, and I'm kind of skeptical if I try to switch between the lines that we might cut you off. But sometimes, callers, and I appreciate all the calls we get, but sometimes, it takes time that I really want to get some of the other information out. But we might see what happens tonight. But again, based on, the conversation, the information that you brought last week, I thought during this month is greatly beneficial for people to hear. And that's what I'm trying to say. We got to try to dispel this comfort level that most people have, including ourselves, and not really understanding what we as a people have contributed to the world, and particularly to America from its inception. Just as inventors, just as people who helped to build this country. So I'm gonna do this to start off. I want you, if you will, just tell the people who you are. Last week you did, and I want you to refresh their memory and where you coming from. I know, first of all, I'll say you're an 833 graduate. You can tell us what year that was, but give us a little background on you, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
All right, you can go ahead, brother.
Thanks a lot, Brother Ali. Again, I'm a native of Jackson, grew up in the city, attended Rowan Junior High School, 833 grad, Lanier class of 1980. Then from there, went to Mississippi State, got a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. Went west, lived in Seattle, worked out there as a mechanical engineer for 18 years. Also served as president of the Seattle-King County NAACP. Our branch was the winner of the Class 1A Alzheimer's, one of the best branch in the association. And then in 2005, I became the 4th executive director for the National Society of Black Engineers, which is the largest repository of Black engineers in the world. And in 2013, I retired. And since that time, I've been playing around with history. Actually, the veil was lifted from my eyes in 1990 around history because, when I graduated at the time, I even graduated from Mississippi State, I couldn't give you 100 words about the Black experience. So I started a lifelong self-taught excursion into history. And of course, I had one of my great mentors who's no longer with us, Dr. Edward Jones, a former professor from the University of Washington.
I remember Edward Jones. He was one of the counselors there when I was there.
Well, no, he wasn't at Lanier. He was at University of Washington.
University of Washington, where I went. I graduated from the University of Washington.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah,
Yes,
so Dr. Jones was my mentor. I get off from work, go over there, and just what that man poured into me and how he pushed me to learn how to look inside the pages and find these amazing aspects of our experience benefits me to this day. So that was my mentor. Okay. And so I worked on some projects And my last project I did was it's very unique. I did 5 versions of a very unique desktop calendar. And the 4th calendar that I did, Black Heritage Day 4, was actually licensed by Google. So they put it on their assistant device. And so every day you can ask what happened on this day in history, and it would read from my research. So it was all over the world. It's pretty amazing.
So a person can Google that and get that calendar, are you saying?
Now, at one time, they had it on their device. They had it up there for a little over a year, and then they took it down. And so now, if people want to hear Black history every day of the year, they can go to their Apple, to their Google store or Android store. Just go to your app store, and if you Google Black Heritage Days, if you Google that, there'll be an app that'll come up, and you'll see the continent of Africa, red, black, and green with a fist on it. It's an app that a friend of mine, he and I did this app. He actually created the app. I provided all the research material, and then I do the narration on the app as well. So, and that app is free to anybody that wants to download it. Again, it's Black Heritage Day. All you got to do is go to your app store, do a search on Black Heritage Day or Black Heritage Days. That app will come up, download it, it's free. And that app all the research in there was research that I did. And if you want to read it, you can read it. If you want to hit the play button, I'll narrate it to you every day of the year.
Okay, so now, given the research that you've done and on African American history, and again, I'd say, this should be incorporated in our regular history. People come up with all these adjectives and these titles to be able to teach our history in the schools, critical race theory and all this, when in fact it should just be history. I mean, why you want to make it sound so threatening? As we learn from kindergarten through high school and even in the college, depending on what you take, subjects you take, the history. We got to separate our history out as if we're going to pay this special attention to it 1 month or 2 weeks out of the year. That infuriates me, just that idea. But last week we talked a lot about Black people in all the wars that America has been involved with, including the Revolutionary War. I like to kind of extend that a little bit and go into other contributions that Black people have made towards the development of America, such as inventors and that sort of thing. So maybe you can give us some names of some people that have invented things that maybe we use every day and don't even know that a Black person is the person that invented it.
Then you ought to start with a guy named Emmett McHenry. McHenry is the man who gave us .com, .net, .edu, and .gov. So he had a Black-owned company, and literally and what happened is, on December 31st, 1999, they were the only bidders for a contract for the U.S. government via the National Science Foundation, and they were literally awarded a 5-year, $100 million a year contract, and the contract was to establish the world's first ever domain name addressing system for the internet. So that's why I'm saying, when he got that contract, Black-owned company, Emmett McHenry, it was their company who gave us. So every time you see .com, .net, .edu, and .gov, that Black man, Emmett McHenry, was the one that did that. And so they were the only Black-owned company, and they was the only company in America authorized to issue internet web addresses. But then as the internet began to explode, the name of their company was Network Solutions. So if you look up Network Solutions, you'll be able to follow the story. But as the internet began to explode, they needed more funding. So they approached a lot of wealthy Black folks. They approached Wall Street, financial institutions, and everybody declined them. Nobody was able to see the potential. So then McHenry turned and he asked the government to allow Network Solutions to charge people per domain name. and that they would receive a royalty on any of the domain names created, which is something that happens today. But the U.S. government said no. Overwhelmed, McHenry sold Network Solutions in 1995 to Science Application International or SAIC. He sold them for $4.8 million.
Oh,
Mere months after he sold that company, the United States government now gave SAIC the rights to charge and receive royalties. 5 years later, SAIC was worth $21 billion. So here's the man that started it. When he asked the government, because the internet was absolutely exploded, and when he asked the government to be able to charge and get royalties, so when you see GoDaddy, all of these names that all of these companies out there that you have to register and get your domain from, that's exactly what he was asking the government to do. They said no. As soon as he sold it to some white folks, they gave them white folks the chance to do it. Months later, the company's worth $21 billion. But Emmett McHenry is the father of .com.
And there's so many examples of that. And I'm sure, you got some others, but this is what I'm saying.
Let me give you another one.
Okay.
There was a brother named Jesse Russell, and he was born in Nashville, Tennessee, about 1948. And so the next time you pass a wireless communication base station, I want you to thank that brother. But in case you don't know what a wireless communication base station is, it's more commonly known as a cell phone tower. And so if you were to look at the names on the patent, there's a patent number. And if you take a look at that patent that was issued on March 3rd, 1998, and that patent is titled Wireless Communication Base Station, there's 12 names on that patent. One of the names that you're going to find on that patent is a brother named Jesse Eugene Russell. And he earned his Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering from Tennessee State University. He got a Master's of Science in Electrical Engineering in 1973 from Stanford. And he started his career with AT&T Bell Labs. As a matter of fact, Russell was the first Black ever hired directly from an HBCU. And so this is the brother who helped invent the cell phone tower. And then if you take a look at a patent, and that patent number is 5257397, that patent is titled the Mobile Data Telephone. So I'm not kidding you when I tell you that Jesse Russell, a Black man, is also one of the people that invented that cell phone that we're using right now.
Right now, today. Again,
That's right.
That's typical, but information, things that we are utilizing every day that history failed to distinguish that these were African American. Dr. Charles Drew was one. I'm sure you know the history of him as well. I wish you would help people understand exactly who he was, Dr. Charles Drew.
Well, that invented that started the blood bank, right?
Yeah.
But and so the interesting thing about it is he was born in D.C. and what he did was he revolutionized medical treatment when he discovered a process for separating and preserving blood. He was a graduate of Amherst College in Massachusetts, and he received his medical degree in 1933 from McGill. But in 1940, while he was pursuing his Doctor of Science at Columbia, that's when he established himself as an expert on blood plasma, and that's blood minus the red blood cell. And so as a result of them knowing and seeing the brilliance of this Black man, the British government now requested his leadership in setting up the very first blood bank in England. He was later appointed director of the American Red Cross Blood Donor Project during World War II. But he resigned from that position because the War Department of these here United States insisted on keeping blood from white donors separate from that of Black donors. And in 1944, he got awarded the NAACP's highest honor, and that's the Spingarn Medal for his outstanding research. And then he went on to serve as chief surgeon at the Freedman Hospital and the professor of surgeon at Howard University. And so they consider Dr. Charles Drew, he is best known as the father of the blood bank. Now, there's a myth going on that he died because they refused to give him blood. And I can tell you absolutely, without any doubt, that that is absolutely not true. As a matter of fact, I did a Black History presentation probably 2 years ago at the University of Washington. And in the audience was his great nephew and his mother, both Druze. And so they told me who they were. During my presentation, and there were questions that came up. They introduced themselves. And I literally asked him, did Charles Drew die? Although I knew the answer, did he die because they refused to give him blood? And they said, absolutely not. That's not true. So,
and I'm glad you put that out there, because I was one just like you. I was one who had heard that I had heard that information. I'll put it like that over the years, and I say, that's very ironic that the very man who invented a process to save lives lost his life because the very process he invented was not given to him. So it's good. But the truth is always best.
Did not happen. But I'm saying to you, that did not happen. He didn't die because they refused to give him blood. That's not why he died.
Okay. He was in an accident, of course.
Say it again?
He was in an accident as a result of his death.
Yeah, and he just died from the accident, but he did not die because they refused a blood transfusion from him. So that's the myth that's not happening. Now I'll give you another example, and this is probably one that most people do not know. But there was a sister named Marion Croak, and Croak was born in 1955 in Pennsylvania. She got a bachelor's degree from Princeton, got a PhD from the University of Southern California, specializing, and get this, she specialized in quantitative analysis and psychology. But in 1982, she joined AT&T Bell Laboratories. She understood the power. Now, remember now, we're talking 1982, but she understood the power of the internet. So she and she tried to convince AT&T Bell Labs about this potential within the internet, and they were very conservative, very doubtful of it. But she just kept pounding on them, and so Bell Labs gave her to go ahead to do some of the things she did. And she filed a patent that was called Method and Apparatus for Monitoring End-to-End Performances in a Network. Basically, what she invented, what she created, was voice over internet protocol. So it's the same thing. So when you start talking about you want a Zoom meeting, you want to make a phone call on WhatsApp, you want to use Skype, you want to use Google Voice or Microsoft Teams, all of that came from this Black woman, Marion Croak. Now, furthermore, when you watch those entertainment shows and like American Got Talent or whatever the other show is, and they want you to text in who you think the winner is, that texting in, that's her technology. Or if you see a natural disaster and you see the Red Cross say, text your donation to this, that technology is Marion Croak.
We're talking about an African-American woman. We make that clear.
That's right.
African-American woman who invented that process.
Invented. So if you can't remember nothing else, just remember it was a Black woman that invented Zoom. She invented WhatsApp. She invented Skype, all Microsoft Teams, all of that. The next time you see a disaster and you see text to donate, when you looked at American Idol and they had that voting system, that is a Black woman by the name of Marion Croak. Now, for those, so she's one of those people that a lot of folks don't hear about. Now, I also want to tell you about a sister named Patricia Bath, right? Mm-hmm. And in the case of Patricia Bath, for anybody, and I'm sorry, just give me 1 second here. Good Lord. For anybody that my research, all of my research just went caboose. But anyway, in the case of Patricia Bath, anybody that wears glasses and has ever had cataract laser eye surgery, that apparatus for removing the cataract lenses, that was invented by Patricia Bath. And so the sister that I told you about earlier, Marion Croak and Patricia Bath, as a matter of fact, they became the first two Black women to be inducted into the Inventors Hall of Fame, the American Inventor Hall of Fame. So that's who Patricia Bath is.
Okay, well, again, and this is what you're saying right now is current. It's what you more current history, and I'm sure we can go even further back than that. But that's the whole point. There's a lot of things that we in America or around the world use daily that we don't have the slightest idea that these products or inventions came about out of the minds of a Black person.
Well, let me give you something. If you want to go back and deal with one of the illnesses, it wasn't too long ago when leprosy was a issue for some people. And there was a young sister by the name of Alice Ball. And so since you and I went to the University of Washington, this means a little bit more to us. But she was born in 1892 in Seattle. And she went to Seattle Central College, but she enrolled at the University of Washington in 1912. And it was there that she earned a bachelor's degree in pharmaceutical chemistry and a bachelor's degree in the science of pharmacy in 1914. And during that time, this Black girl, which was very unusual for any woman to get this, let alone a Black woman, but during that time, she was published in the Journal of American Chemical Society. And so along with her outstanding grades, she ultimately moved to Hawaii and went to school at the College of Hawaii. And it was there that she was pursuing her master's degree. Now, when she was there, she was approached by a guy from the U.S. Public Health Services in Hawaii, a guy named Harry T. Holman, and he asked her for her help. Now, the reason he asked her for her help, because in Hawaii, they had an island that they literally put people with leprosy on that island, and they just lived out the rest of their life because there was no cure for it. So he asked her for help in studying the chemical properties of the Chickamauga oil and its effects on the treatment of leprosy. Now, they tried to use this oil, and people tried to take it, and just take it in their mouth, but the body just couldn't take it. So she played around with it through her chemical compounds, and at the age of 23, she modified the chemical compounds of that oil. And in doing so, it made it so that the body could absorb it via injection. And the breakthrough was called the Ball method. Now, her method was so effective that leprosy patients were able to go home and return back to their families. But in 1915, she became the first Black woman ever to earn a master's degree from the College of Hawaii and the first Black research chemist and instructor in the school's chemistry department. But at the age of 24, she died. Now, when she died, her research had not been published at that point. The then president of the College of Hawaii stole her research and passed it off. So her research was called the Ball method. He passed it off as his own and called it the Dean method. And it was in 2000, it was sometime later that people found out what he did. And so once they found out what he did, the state of Hawaii honored her. And so what they did is, because of leprosy, every February 29th, they call that Alice Ball Day. So on that leap year day, leap year leprosy, they call that Alice Ball Day. But there was a young Black girl, 23 years old, that came up with the cure for leprosy for those folks in Hawaii.
And throughout the history of the patent agency, there was almost standard procedure that inventions that Black people would send in, that if they accepted them, a lot of times they were attributed to white folks. For instance, I'm sure there's a brother, you want to know about the brother that really is the one who created the filament for the light bulb that we use every day, that Thomas Edison got credit for.
The guy you're talking about is Lewis Latimer.
Right.
And so, obviously Edison had a filament in his, but his filament kept burning out after a couple of days. And so to your point, Lewis Latimer is the one that came up with that long burning filament, and then ultimately opened up a company that produce these filaments that are long lasting. So that's what we're seeing now. But when you're speaking about blacks and getting patents, keep in mind that at one point, this country forbade black folks. They would not grant a patent to black folks strictly because you were black, for no other reason. That's what the United States government did. As a matter of fact, during the Civil War, the Confederate States of America started allowing our enslaved ancestors to apply for and be granted a patent before the United States of America did it. And so let's go back to who was the first black person to get a patent in this country. It was a guy named Thomas Jennings, and Jennings was born in New York City in 1791, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the patent that he got, it occurred in 1821 when he got his patent. And so the next time you go pick up your dry cleaning, know that that dry cleaning process was invented by a black man named Thomas L. Jennings. March 3rd, 1821 is when he got his patent.
Now this is history. And I would venture to say, who would say that this is divisive? To understand this type of history that they will not, in fact, teach in our schools, calling it whatever else they want to call it, but divisive? What I can imagine how you even come up with that definition for this type of information.
Oh, I can absolutely tell you how they come up with it. And the reason is because we have to remember that slavery is America's original sin. And not only is it their original sin, but it stands as a quintessential example of the hypocrisy of American democracy, meaning that this country was founded on these inalienable rights, that all men were created equal, that all men had the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And at the very moment that they're uttering those very beautiful words, they're enslaving another member of the human race.
Exactly.
That level of hypocrisy and the evil of chattel slavery is what has them so ashamed that they're fighting to keep our history away from us. And as much as they want to fight to keep it away from us, the problem is, I don't care what, white folks ain't got a big enough eraser to stop us from learning our history. They ain't got enough white paint to whitewash our history. But we got more than enough apathy within the black community that the only time we want to talk about black history is during the month of February. So we really ain't got to worry about white folks. It's our asses that are sitting there acting like we ain't got much to offer. And all I can tell you is that from the scholarship and just sitting down and studying, we have an absolutely amazing, amazing history. As a matter of fact, it warms my heart. And speaking of heart, let me just tell you this story. So there was a sister named Myra Logan, and she was born in Alabama. Now, most of us know that on July 10th, 1893, the first person to ever do successful open heart surgery was a brother named Daniel Hale Williams.
Right.
However, most of us, and I was one, did not know that 50 years later, there would be a black woman named Myra Adele Logan, who was the first woman ever to perform successful open heart surgery. As a matter of fact, at the time that she performed her open heart surgery, I think there had been only 8 or 9 successful open heart surgeries done in the world. So she was the first woman to do it, and she was within the top 10 to do it. Like I said, I think there was only 8 people that did it before her. So there you have it, black woman, and amazing sister, Myra Dale Logan.
You know, again, this is information, man. I mean, this is just general information for anyone to help. As I always say, how would we expect to have respect for ourselves if we don't know our history? How would we expect anyone to have respect for us if they don't know our true history? And you know, as we see now in the society today, it seems that our youth is trying to create a history from today, as opposed to knowing from which they came. And then too many of us, once we get a little bit of education, we think we have to become, culture means to forget who you are. And it is, you know, it's just disgraceful, you know, but what you're putting out here, brother, keep doing it, man. We need to know that, and we need to fight for. As I would say here in Jackson, you know what Lanier was like when you graduated there, and when I graduated there, and now we 99% of the school, and they still don't know how to teach history without calling it critical race theory.
Well, speaking of Lanier, let's talk about Lanier for a minute.
Go ahead, bro.
Are you familiar with the guy Bob Moses? Are you familiar with him?
Oh yeah.
So Bob Moses, for those of us who don't know, Bob Moses was born in 1935 up in New York City, but he came down in the South during the Mississippi Freedom Days to try to help Black folks and to get registered. So he was involved in that tumultuous climate in Mississippi when we saw the death of Andrew Goodman, James Chaney, that brother lives up right down there in Meridian, and Michael Swerner in Mississippi.
Right.
And when he was working during that Mississippi Freedom Summer, a lot of the volunteers got scared, but Moses wasn't one of them. So he stayed involved in the freedom movement. But something happened, but Moses also understood the importance of math. And if you've ever heard of this project, which, I knew about it, what I didn't know about it was who started that project. And the project is called the Algebra Project.
That's right.
Bob Moses is the founder of the Algebra Project. But guess where he started the Algebra Project?
At 833.
At 833.
Yes, sir.
So that world-renowned Algebra Project that started in 1982, 2 years after I left, was started by Bob Moses.
And again, we need to know when we're in charge. And right now, Hinds County, Jackson included, we're in a very unique situation where we are in control. I try to put that out there every time I come on the air. It's like the old saying, so you can, if you give people a slave mentality and you can free them and they still be slaves. So, but the only way we're going to beat that is to understand from which we came and dispel this attitude that we just now getting educated.
Well, before I move on from 833, let me give you another story. And this is a story that I wrote up. I'm doing so a lot of what I'm reading to you is research that I'm doing on Blacks in science, technology, engineering, and math. And so this is a guy by the name of Henry Sampson Jr.
Mm-hmm.
So Henry Sampson Jr. was born on April 22nd, 1934 in Jackson, Mississippi. He graduated from Lanier High School. He graduated in 1951. He enrolled at Morehouse and he transferred to Purdue, and at Purdue he became a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. In 1956, he earned his BS in Chemical Engineering. In 1961, he earned his Master of Science in Engineering. He enrolled at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and he earned his Master of Science and PhD in Nuclear Engineering in 1965 and 1967, respectively. And Dr. Sampson was the first Black ever to earn a PhD in nuclear engineering. And one of the most important design features of a nuclear reactor is that shield that fits around that reactor to absorb any radiation leaking into, to prevent it from leaking into the environment. And on July 6, 1963, Dr. Sampson and a guy named George Miley were awarded a patent titled Gamma Electric Cell. Their device produced a high voltage from the gamma radiation captured from the shield around the nuclear reactor during operation. He is also a noted film historian, and a lot of his works, including several books, Black and White, a source of book on Black films, all of that. If I'm not mistaken, he donated that to Jackson State University. So the first Black to get a PhD in nuclear engineering came from our high school, Lanier High School, Dr. Henry Sampson Jr.
Jackson, Mississippi.
That part right there.
Let me ask you this, brother, because I know we're kind of on the same plane, but why do you think this is so threatening to the white community?
White superiority.
Well, go into that a little bit, brother.
You know, part of, so you would hear them talk about the small percentage of white folks that own slaves. And they say that as if somehow it wasn't so bad. But the other thing that, and what that small percentage of slave owners did was made every other white person buy into that white superiority complex by saying, you might be poor, you might be downtrodden, but at least you're better than that black person over there.
Right.
So they pushed this concept of white superiority, even to the point that when they saw black schools outperforming white schools, they closed them down.
Absolutely.
So white folks got a real sick disease. I'm not saying all white folks, but that clique that has it, Trump, these folks from Turning Point USA, that whole MAGA nation, and then some of these black folks who don't know shit about shit, but they drunk that Kool-Aid from white folks, and all of a sudden they want to believe that, and hoping that and they watching folks like Candace Owens, they get embraced by white folks because you put a black face on that white rhetoric, and all of a sudden they get paid. Well, all I can say is you can keep your 30 dirty pieces of silver. Judas don't live over here. But that feeling, that whole white superiority complex where they feel like they have to be better than. And then the other thing is that when you take a look at this concept of white superiority, especially today, to recognize black excellence also shines a light on just how evil and sick they were, that back then they wanted to try to label us as savages and not capable of this or that. But everywhere white folks, historically, when you look at wherever they've gone, they've always brought about that white superiority. They wanted to label the Indians as savages. They're always doing that nonsense, Mike.
Well, and again, I would think if people really would take a sincere effort to understand, we here and we ain't going anywhere. I don't care what type of movement they think they're gonna put together. That should be dispelled by now. We ain't going anywhere. We got to learn to live together. And the thing is, if they want to think in their mind that we are incapable of learning, we are incapable of producing unless white folks are directing us what to do, then, it's going to be a hard road, man. It's going to be a hard road. And we see that right now in government here. As I keep pointing out here in Jackson and Hinds County, as you probably know, Mississippi has more black elected officials than any other state in the country. Matter of fact, Mississippi has the largest percentage of black folks in the state than any other state in the country.
So with that as a backdrop, let me ask you this question. Because we're talking about why is it that white folks are so threatened by our history. So, and given that Mississippi has so many black elected officials, so Brother Ali, how are public schools paid for?
With our tax money.
Okay, with our tax money. So is black tax dollars, are we, is our dollar less than the white tax dollars?
They would like us to think that, and we act on it.
But I'm asking you that question.
But now, to answer your question, in reality, no. In reality, no.
Stop. Okay, so let's stop right there. So the black dollar is equal to the white dollar. So we're talking about why we don't have our history. We're talking about the fact that you got all these black elected officials in Mississippi. So explain to me, anybody, somebody, everybody, please explain to me, how is it that our tax dollars and white folks' tax dollars and everybody else's tax dollars, but in this case, I'm just talking black and white, black folks' tax dollars and white folks' tax dollars go to support public schools. Yet, we give these racist mofos all the power and authority to dictate what history is taught. And we sit there like, well, that's just the way it is. Man, fuck all that. We should be able to
we're going out over there, brother. You have to. I know you're upset, but
yeah. Okay, my bad. But the idea that we are going to put our tax dollars up there like anybody else, but then we gonna sit there and let white folks tell us, well, this is what the curriculum gonna be. At what point do we stop bending our backs? You got enough black enough black leaders down there, but where's the wherewithal for us to straighten our backs and look that white man right in his face and say, man, you take your white superiority history up out of here. This ain't what we gonna be teaching. We're gonna teach a more holistic history. That's on us to do that.
Let me give you my theory on that. And I try to put it out there as often as I can. You know, when you make a people resent themselves and they think that the only way they can be a person is to be nearly white or think nearly white or act nearly white. Now, with all these, and I give you the prime example, I say each week here on this show. Here we run the schools, we run it. We the government. I mean, we the majority, the super majority on the school board. The superintendent is black, and they got a wealth of money over there. But here we are, a C-rated school district when we shouldn't be. And for instance, when it comes down to money, the status quo, the white structure, and again, me and you know we are educated and experienced enough to know that we're not talking about all white people, but we're talking about those who have maintained the control. And that is, whenever we find anybody that we have put in these positions to make decisions about how money is going to be spent, they find ways to still give it to the white community. And I'll give you an example. I've stated this quite often. We closed 17 schools here in Jackson. Jackson closed them and renovated them and gave all that work to one white contractor. Now, you know, anybody who would stand back and say, how did they black folks manage to feel comfortable with themselves to do that?
Right.
Okay. We just came out of an administration, that following up on a previous administration that brought us water meters that we didn't need and don't need, that's overcharging people right now. And the reason it was done so that they could get rich. They come in office and leave office 100 times richer than when they came in office. That's a fact. You got and then when a lawsuit come up in the situation, who do they choose? Even though we have black folks over there in our legal department who could have handled that situation, they gave a $33 million award to a white law firm out of Alabama. I keep saying, who are making these decisions? And your question is just that, why do we make decisions like that? Why do we do that? Even when you're in control, you still don't know that you are in control.
Because you ain't in control. Because all you are is a puppet. And I'm telling you, and I'm saying this to you. You know, if I'm down in Jackson, I guarantee you I'm getting to the nooks and crannies of who made the vote. Because it ain't like it's a secret on who voted what.
Exactly.
And whoever voted that way and ain't got my interest because you got my skin don't make you my kin.
Exactly.
And we need to raise up out of there. But the point still remains is that the days of us waiting on white folks to approve it and be comfortable with it and teach our history is done. That's the reason why I did this calendar the way I did, so that I can sit back and every day of the year, I can learn something beautiful about my blackness. In the same way, and even now, I got a free app, and I'm gonna tell you what I'm gonna do, Brother Ali. I don't know how many people you got listening to your program, but I'm gonna say it again for about the 4th time. It's a free Black History app. Every day it's giving you something out of Black history. So I'm gonna look at the intake tomorrow and see how many people downloaded that app as a result of this conversation. Right. All you got to do is go to your app store, Black Heritage Day, and download the app. It's free. I ain't getting paid now 1 penny for it. Not one penny. It's free. We made this free for the community. But I'll leave that alone. And so let me go back into another. People may have heard of this company called Thermo King. And I don't know if you've heard of Thermo King, but a lot of times when you go by your little igloos and your thermos and all that to keep things cold and keep hot things hot, there's a company called Thermo King. But the brother who started Thermo King is a guy named Frederick McKinley Jones, and I know most of us remember. You've heard about the refrigeration on the railroad cars and the trucks.
Right, absolutely.
That brilliance was done by Frederick McKinley Jones. Now, I'm going to give you another piece of technology that most of us probably don't know came from a black man. Right now, if you want to go look at a movie, you remember back in the day when we wanted to look at a movie, you had to go down the street and get a video from Blockbuster, right?
Right.
And then they came up with something they call video on demand. You could be sitting right in your house and you could order a movie right there, right?
Right.
That technology, video on demand, was invented by a black man named Lanny Smoot. Smoot. And if you look up Lanny Smoot, you're going to understand that he invented video on demand. But he didn't stop there. As a result of that, in 2000, he joined Disney. So for all these people who've been to Walt Disney and you've seen their Star Wars attraction, a lot of that is Lanny Smoot. As a matter of fact, the next time you look at Star Wars and you see I think that the character on Star Wars is called BB-8. He's a little droid, looks like an orange and white soccer ball with a little dome on top.
Mm-hmm.
The drive unit for that, the drive system for that little android was invented by Lanny Smoot. As a matter of fact, when you go to Disney and you see the lightsabers, all of that, when you see all of that Star Wars attraction, all of those are his ideas, his patents. As a matter of fact, he has over 100 patents to his credit, and there's no other employee in the history of Walt Disney that can say that they got 100 patents to their credit. So he is the most decorated engineer in the history of Walt Disney. He's a man named Lanny Smoot. Remember that.
And again, that's exactly, the whole effort that I'm trying to put forth here. And and I don't want it to end here. This just, just a little kickoff. But, we need to understand that a lot of things that we take advantage of in our daily lives that makes our lives better in some way were invented by black people. And then when you hear white people, those Charlie Kirk mentalities, who want to be sitting in a lighted room that is made possible by a black inventor, who are using some apparatus or watching TV or using the internet that was improved or invented by a black person, and then all with one breath try to talk about how we are so dependent on them. That comes out of ignorance. And that's what I say over and over, brother Mac, here. We're not stupid. We're not dumb. We've been ignorant, but so have white folks when it comes to us and our history. And that's been a big thorn.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Brother Ali. Listen, as much as I, for whatever it is that I know out of Black history, make no mistake about it, I don't consider myself an expert. I am a lifelong student. There's a whole lot about the Black experience I don't know. And I can just tell you that every day I'm having fun getting into it. So just like now we're talking about, Blacks and, some of the stuff that we've invented. That's because I'm sitting down doing research on these things. That's why I'm sitting here. I'm just I'm at my computer and I'm literally inside of my research and I'm just reading off to these things, some of these things I found.
Right.
Now, when you talk about things that we use day to day,
right.
How many of us use GPS every day? And the sister who invented that, Gladys West, she just recently died. But she is considered the mother of the GPS system, right?
Right.
So a lot of these things that we've done, and then when you go back, I know, we started off talking about Alexander Graham Bell and Thomas Edison. But when they talk about the greatest electrician in the world, you're talking about a man named Granville T. Woods. And so, you got to remember that, if you ever look at them, especially if you go to San Francisco and you see the over-rail trolley systems, the wire, the wires that run up above, a lot of that came out of him. But when they talk about this brother from his ability as an electrician, there was nobody in the world. Basically, he would be Elon Musk today. He was that guy.
Right.
He was
Right.
that guy. So, again, and I think the thing that makes all of this so amazing to me is when you take a look at what Black folks had to go through, unlike any other group of people, and yet still found a way to achieve these types of breakthroughs in science, technology, and math, and just day-to-day life. I just find our experience just absolutely amazing. So for me, at this point, I don't look for white folks to give me no approval for anything. And so I just want to share a presentation that I just did Friday, Brother Ali.
Go ahead, brother.
And what's amazing to me is that, because I told you, I came out of Jackson, I graduated from Lanier, again, look at every school I went to. I went to Brown Elementary, I went to Rowan Junior High School, I went to Lanier. And not at one of them schools did I ever learn Black history. Something's wrong with that picture.
Yeah, exactly.
I go to Mississippi State. I graduate. I don't know anything. But today, I'm being asked to go all over the country. So this Friday, I was in Glendale, Maryland. I'm at Reed Temple AME Church. It's about 350 AME churches represented from the 1,500 people that sat there and listened to me lecture on Black history. And as a result of that, now I'm getting asked to speak in AME churches all across on the East Coast. I leave that presentation on Friday. I get on a plane and fly to Seattle on Saturday. Sunday, I lecture in Tacoma, Washington. Now I come back home Monday. I'm about to get on a plane Friday and go to Rochester, New York. So what I'm doing is just doing my best to get out there and teach our history. But the one thing that I'm trying to remind Black folks of is that this thing we celebrate that we call Black History Month occurred 100 years ago to the month, 1926. Dr. Woodson chose that second week in February in honor of Lincoln and Douglas.
Mm-hmm.
But yet here we are 100 years later, and we just can't seem to get away from the month of February. Something's wrong with that picture. And so the thing that I like is because I've lectured on this and I've stated this to people, now I got people scheduling me to come and teach Black history in April, come in March, come in June, all the way through the year. People are looking down the road and scheduling me to come, which is a beautiful thing because that means we're beginning to move away from just the month of February.
Well, let me point this out, Brother Mac, because I'm sure there are those out there who were in the era of going to school during the time that I did here. When the schools were segregated, unfortunately now, when the schools were segregated, our teachers taught us Black history. When they were segregated, the reason when the schools got integrated, all of a sudden the teachers could not stand before the class and tell us what life was going to be like because you're Black and where you came from, what Africa was about, and what your ancestors went through in this country to get to where they are. When the schools were segregated, when nobody in them was Black teachers and Black students, they taught Black history. But now,
and go ahead, brother.
But now the schools are the white folks just took an exodus out of our public schools. So the schools now are student-wise almost 100% Black, almost. Right. You'd be hard pressed to find a white student in our public schools, particularly from the middle school to high school level. So, but now the difference is they're so afraid now that they're gonna upset white folks just to teach the history of our people.
Right. See, I'm telling you this right now. Were I the superintendent of Jackson Public Schools, I'm telling you right now, I'd absolutely give a mandate that there will be Black history taught in these schools. Ain't nobody gonna come down. Federal government, you want to take your funding, take your funding, man. We gonna find a way.
Right.
We're gonna find a way. It ain't, you know, but if we do that federal funding, we don't get that federal funding. We gonna find, you know, because I'm gonna now be pushing Benny Thompson and all them other folks up in Congress to make sure that we down in Mississippi gonna get our money. But I can tell you absolutely, if I'm superintendent of a public school, I promise you Black history will be taught. And whatever pushback, it's gonna be real little compared to what I could stand.
Well, I'm with you, brother. I'm with you. I believe it can be done. I know it can be done.
Without question. And when I say it's small to me, now to some people, just the mere fact that white folks say no, that's like a Category 5 storm. Man, no, it's like a gnat, man. I don't even recognize that, man.
Right. Well, you know, the former manager, I want to call him manager of this station, Charles Evers. He had a saying. Charles Evers, who was the brother of Medgar Evers. He had a saying that he always said, when you're in charge, be in charge. And you know, his understanding was, you know, when you're in charge, know that you're in charge and what you can do. It's so often that when we put Black folks in these positions of responsibility and they have the right to make decisions about how money is spent, you know, they act like we, as Black people, are asking people we put in these government positions of authority, that we're asking them to break the law, that we're asking them to do something underhanded or under the table or whatever. But they don't do that till they're stealing for themselves. But you know, what the laws are what they are. They don't have to break any laws to do anything for us. I mean, the laws are there. We the citizens, we're taxpayers. Brother,
I get it.
We're gonna continue this, and hopefully next week we will get more into these Black laws and type of things that really have prevented Black people or tried to prevent Black people from advancing in America.
But before we go, let's leave on a light note.
Yes, sir. Let's do that.
All right. So I'm going to give you a sister that I wrote researched about, and she was one of those hidden figures that worked at NASA, but you didn't see her in the movie. So here's the write-up I got. Have you ever heard of Mount Mouton? So anybody if you're listening to me, I want you to Google the word Mount. I want you to Google Mount Mouton, and Mouton is spelled Mouton. So have you ever heard of Mount Mouton? It's a 20,000-foot mountain on the moon named after a Black woman, Melba Roy Mouton. Now, she was born in 1929 in Fairfax, Virginia. She graduated from Manassas Regional High School and enrolled at Howard University in 1949. And while at Howard, Chloe became a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, now president of Kelly Miller Chapter of Future Teachers of America, and she became a member of the NAACP. She earned a Bachelor of Science, summa cum laude, and her MS in Math in 1950 and 1951, respectively. She married a guy named Wardell Rupert prior to receiving her MS. Thus, on June 19, 1951, commencement program for Howard, she's listed as Melba Chloe Roy. She later married Webster Mouton. Now, having joined NASA in 1959, on September 3rd, 1960, Mouton was serving as the head mathematician for ECHO satellites 1 and 2 and tracking ECHO 1. ECHO 1 was launched on August 12, 1960, May 20, and it went from August 12, 1960 to May 25, 1968, for a damn near 8-year period. And it was the first satellite used to orbit the Earth and facilitate communication around the world. But in order to accomplish this tracking, this Black woman, Mouton, had to master multiple tracking formulas to calculate and plot the trajectory of the satellite. Her mastery earned her such respect from her supervisors that she was promoted to head computer program. Now, in this role, she was responsible for Mission and Trajectory Analysis Division program. And this is the team that coded the computer programs used to calculate spacecraft locations and their trajectory. She gave NASA the ability to track spacecraft while they were in orbit. And it was because of this type of brilliance that NASA named this 20,000 foot mountain on the moon after this Black woman, Melba Mouton. They named it Mount Mouton.
Now that's very interesting. You know, that now we can end on that. I'm down to the end of my hour, but you know, I want to tell the audience that we're gonna try to improve this situation so we can take some call-ins for you next week, brother. Cause I get the people out in the street, they tell me what they like and what they don't like, and they've been really enjoying this information. So I'm gonna try to make it possible for us to get some call-ins for you next week.
Good. Well, I hope that folks have enjoyed our conversation, and certainly, you know, Brother Ali, I want to say this. I want to tell you, and I want to say it to my 833 classmate Inez Thomas as well. I want to thank her for hooking us up. Number one.
Yeah.
But number two, I want to thank you for using your platform for us to talk about some of these folks out of history. And so, and what I'm looking forward to is that if folks got questions out there, I'm looking forward to you calling in, and let us all learn together. Don't call in and think I got the answer to everything, because I don't. I'm a perpetual student, but we can learn together. And I just want to thank you, Brother Ali, for being a very beautiful brother and using your platform to address an issue of us learning a little bit more about our history. And I think God bless you, my brother. And I'm so appreciative and respectful of how you're using your platform.
Well, I appreciate you too, Brother Mac. So stay tuned for next, you know, we want to hear you next week. And hopefully, again, I'll have people ready to call and ask you some questions, brother.
Hey, man, just know that when Brother Ali calls, no matter where I am, we're going to find some time to figure it out.
There you go, brother. Stay strong, brother.
Love you, Black man.
Love you too, brother. Check it out, Lady Cherie.